Guys, this is Nikki Fons from Kind Minds Learning. I'm a owner tutor of the business, and I wanted to just go over a little bit of the curriculums that we use that I'm teaching. There's not a one-size-fits all for students, but I thought that maybe this would help some of the homeschooling parents or hybrid parents at home who are working through these curriculums as well. So let's go ahead and start with the Good and Beautiful. It's a very popular curriculum. It's one that I use a lot of times. It is a religious curriculum. It's Christian based. So one thing is that if you're not, looking for a religious curriculum, you can always filter that out, or you can go ahead and just go through the curriculum as it says. So this is a third grade math course, book 3. This is the digital copy. You can download it for free on their website. You just plug in your email and then they send you the download, which is amazing because a lot of my students have the physical copy. But for me personally, I can actually just pull it up on my computer. So instead of sitting over the child's shoulder and reading through it, I can actually have it on my screen. So it kind of gives us our different spaces. So as we go through this, one thing that I really like to point out to parents or tutors is that as you go through this, you kind of get the breakdown in the table of contents of what you're going to be learning. If your child is doing great with some of these things, there's no reason for you to have to really focus on it. Make sure they have the basic concepts, make sure they're understanding it, make sure that, you guys can do some practice problems, but if they fully understand it, then go ahead and skip it. There's no reason for you to push them. That's the joy of homeschooling. That's the joy of one-on-one, is to really focus on those things that they need and grow on the things that they already know. So again, here's the table of contents. This tells you all about the curriculum, what the lessons are at the end of the sessions. So after usually lesson 29 or 30, they give you a unit assessment, and that unit assessment is what you're going to use to test their knowledge on each area. So we'll get to that in a little bit. So as I go through this, there's usually 4 units in each math section. It gives you some different charts that they have in the beginning of the book. This is identical to the book that they will have, the physical copy, if you order that. This is the first lesson. So let me show you how I teach this. I'm looking at first the title. The title is going to tell me what I'm teaching. Numbers through the 10,000s. Okay, so I already know I'm teaching those numbers through the 10,000s. We're working on place value. Then as I go through it, I'm like, okay, skip counting. Make sure your students can skip count. That's your warm-up, as you'd call it, your bell work, things like that. And then you can go through and you can read these things to your child. Read to the child. In each unit of this course, we are going to expand our knowledge. So I don't always read all of this. Sometimes it's overwhelming. It's a lot of words. At this age, their attention span is already so short. Some students have ADHD, some students are struggling with just sitting still, the environment, things like that. So I don't always read through all of this, but I do usually give them the little stories that go with it. And I work on the skill set. So 900 plus 80 plus 7, and we put all that into our place value, and you can see how we have 9 hundreds, 8 tens, and 7 ones. So again, 987 is broken down. You see how it gives you other questions and things like that. We move on to the next page. Again, read to your child on the whiteboard. So I always have whiteboards. That's up to you if you use whiteboards at home, chalkboards, things like that. And then it says mountain climbers. Okay, so this is where you're going to use your activity. We usually do the activity because it's always fun. The kids love it. I love it. It kind of breaks up that monotony. It's not just a workbook. It's actually factoring in, other, your kinesthetic learners can get up and roll the dice, things like that. So we usually do the activity. And then after that, you get your lesson practice. This is specifically working on those skills that we just learned. I usually do most of this with the child. Again, if they already know and you can see that they know everything and their attention is not there, then it's great to just do a couple of these, say, okay, they understand it, and move on. There's no reason to do every single problem. And last but not least is the review and activities. This is usually what I leave for homework. So the child gets this for homework, and we move on to the next lesson. One thing that I want to point out is that for me personally, I meet with my kids usually 2 days a week. Those 2 days, we usually do about 2 lessons each day, so it comes out to about 4 lessons. In this course, there's 120 lessons. So you break that down according to how many weeks you want to teach, what your schedule looks like, how many days. Some parents teach math Monday through Thursday, Monday through Friday. I personally tutor, and I do 2 lessons each session. and that breaks it down to 4 per week, give or take. If my kids know the lessons, then we might move a little bit faster. If we need to focus on things such as in this curriculum, division and multiplication, then we'll slow it down just a little bit. So this is, again, lesson 2, addition with regrouping review. We look at the mental math, kind of talk about that, go through these problems. I'm like, okay, we're looking at the regrouping, making sure our students know how to regroup, have the child complete some of these problems. We do the lesson practice. Again, this is our core focus. So again, I have students who will breeze straight through this, no problem doing 4. I have some students who can show their mastery after 2. Once they show me that they know it, we can skip on. I always like to do word problems. I think word problems are very crucial for students. Sometimes students can be really good at looking at numbers and solving them, but sometimes they struggle with those word problems. So I always incorporate word problems because, in my opinion, you can never get too many word problems into a lesson, just because word problems, when it comes to state testing and standards and all of those things, that all is incorporated into that. Plus, it's an additional skill for reading. So it's always good to be able to dissect those word problems together. Moving on, again, here's your review and activities. So we review the child usually gets this for homework. These are all things we've already covered, so they get it for homework. Next is your lesson 3. Again, we look at the title, we go through the lesson, we see what we're learning. I kind of sum it up for the child, make sure that they understand the concept and the skill. And then we do, like in this one, we'll play a game, rounding relay. They'll do the lesson practice. We'll do that together, practicing rounding those numbers. And then they get the review and activities for homework. Now, if I teach, let's say in that day I teach 3 or 4 lessons. If we went through 3 or 4 lessons, I'm not giving the child every single lesson because this is all spiral review with mastery incorporated in. So when it comes to that, I usually am just, here's your lesson, maybe the last 2 lessons that we did together, then they'll get their homework. So you don't have to give them 3 pages of homework. You give them what you think they need. If you see a page from 2 lessons ago that you think is going to be more beneficial for them, that's a great opportunity for them to practice their skills. So this is just the math curriculum. As we get down to, I'm going to click all the way through to lesson 30. You'll see in a second how it looks, how the test and assessment looks. Again, as homeschool parents or students who are working through this curriculum, you don't have to teach every single thing. If it's overwhelming for your child, you make it fit for what they need. Here is the unit assessment. I was looking to see if they had a review on this one. So here's your unit assessment. One thing that I want to point out is that it has 2 different sections. You have your purple section on top, and then you have your orange section on bottom. So let me move my face out of the way. So you have your purple section. You only have to do the purple section. Let's say they miss the purple section when they're doing it independently. Then you're going to give them you're going to reteach it. You're going to go back to that lesson. Numbers through the 100,000s. This is lesson 1. You're going to reteach that skill, and then you're going to give them this additional practice. So you don't want to just say, oh, try the orange part. You want to make sure that you reteach it so that they are understanding the concept, and then you give them the additional practice. Same here. On the left-hand side, we have a multiplication, so we'd find the multiplication lesson if they're struggling with it. But once they have the multiplication down, they take the assessment. If they need additional practice, then you give them the bottom part. They don't do the whole page, which is really nice because then if you need to, you can always reteach and then have them take the bottom part. And so you just go through this assessment and test them on all the different skills, which seems like a lot, but again, remember that the spiral review is throughout. So every lesson, they get a little bit of practice from each section in those independent review problems. So that is the end of Unit 1. After they get done with this, you'll move on to Unit 2. And so you can kind of keep track of what they need to work on. Unit 2, again, lessons 31 through 60, and it'll tell you what you're working on, the concepts, and all those things. You move right into it. So that is the Good and Beautiful math. I will do, I'll cover the upper grades as well. I have the pre-algebra curriculum, so stay tuned for that. Thanks for listening.